Right, so here we are again. CM Punk, the man, the myth, the legendary disturber, finally did enough to get canned by AEW, ending a 2-year marriage that at the start seemed like the greatest thing to happen to the wrestling industry this century, but once the honeymoon ended, seemed like the most toxic relationship you could ever imagine. There is a lot of sadness to be felt from how all this went down for a lot of reasons, but the sadness we will be focusing on today is regarding all the magical matches we will now probably never get a chance to see. I'm Tempest, hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are the 10 biggest CM Punk dream matches we'll never see. But before we get on with our list, please make sure to like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a more fun list than this one, and make sure you check out the latest episode of Survival Series. Honorable Mention Will Ospreay. This one could still happen, given that Will Ospreay's home is New Japan Pro Wrestling, at least for the time being, and there's nothing saying Christian Mingle Punk couldn't make the jump, but until we know for sure whether or not we've seen Punk's final ever match, we'll leave this one as an honorable mention. Number 10, CM Punk vs. Swerve. Some of the matches on this list are going to be the big dream matches that pull from history between two men, and some are just going to be a clash of two dudes we should have seen mix it up because it would have been cool. Swerve and Chunky Monkey Punky never had much reason to cross paths, as Punk was on his way to a world title match when Strickland swerved into the company, then was a tag champion during the summer. Since then, however, it has been undeniable that Swerve has taken his stock higher than it has ever been. Adding to his physique and his character over the course of 2023 made Swerve a potential great opponent or rival for Punk. They have styles that are actually quite similar and would complement each other very nicely, hopefully increasing the chances for the match being, as Luke would say, "Ooh, it would be dead lovely." That is a quote, just so you know. Punk would have been the biggest opponent of Swerve's career as well, which could have helped raise his stock even higher. Oh, the shame. Number 9, CM Punk vs. Malachi Black. Who doesn't want to see two brooding tattooed men kicking each other in the head? This possible match was also one that we got fairly close to, given that CMFTR and House of Black managed to have a trios match during Punk's short run on Collision, but despite this, Centimeter Punk and Malachi Black never crossed paths one-on-one. Punk and Brody King are good friends, so I have no doubt both sides would put in work to make any combinations of matches between the two factions great. Malachi Black hasn't had nearly enough major singles matches during his time in AEW as well. Currently, the list is Malachi Black versus Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black versus Cody Rhodes. Seriously, Malachi Black versus Penta is the second biggest. So some work needs to be done there, and again, it would be hard to find a bigger singles opponent than Punk. Who would win this battle of kick-type Pokemon? Find out? Never. Number 8, CM Punk vs. Orange Cassidy. Sometimes the AEW style of booking, keeping top stars apart from each other until there is a very good reason to put them together, works out for the best, like when Jon Moxley didn't wrestle Hangman Page for 3 years and didn't wrestle Orange Cassidy for 4. But sometimes it doesn't pay off, leaving us to wonder why we never got to see the Lucha Brothers versus Santana and Ortiz, or in this case, Charmander Punk versus most major stars in AEW. And in case you haven't been paying attention for the last year, Orange Cassidy most certainly qualifies as one of the most major stars AEW has at this point. Orange has always struck me as a perfect opponent for a heel CM Punk, the guy that hates fun and would have no problem juicing that orange when he starts his shtick. We were deprived of a CM Punk heel turn and the incredible matches and promos that would have come with it, and that is the bit that hurts, like citrus in the eye. Number 7, CM Punk vs. Katsuyori Shibata. At one point, the return of Katsuyori Shibata seemed just as unlikely as the return of Killian Murphy Punk, albeit for completely different reasons, but as the wise Canadian Justin Bieber once said, never say never. Shibata has made sporadic appearances for AEW while wrestling primarily for Ring of Honor, but that doesn't mean he couldn't have one day crossed paths in a proper dream match with Punk, especially considering the reverence Punk has for Japanese wrestling. Considering the only star from Japan Punk managed to face during his time in AEW was Satoshi Kojima because of injuries and what have you, Shibata would have been a fantastic opponent for Punk to wrestle the style he so greatly admires. Shibata has only gotten to wrestle a handful of big matches since his return to the ring, mostly competing against younger talent like Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, so a big match opponent with a bona fide superstar would likely have brought out a side of Shibata that we have not seen in years. Thankfully, there is still hope that we get to see that in the future. Number 6, CM Punk vs. Adam Cole. Now we're getting into the matches that I really cannot believe we never got. Adam Cole has a long history of telling people that CJ McCollum Punk was an inspiration of his. The one who got him into Ring of Honor, the one that got him into indie wrestling, the one that got him to work on his promos. The influence is massive, especially considering Cole's career path. Which makes it all the more sad that we didn't get to see a storyline play out between the two. These are two men I would certainly classify as storytellers, and this could have been a real chance to tell another story of Punk being someone's idol, but told in a completely different way after his rivalry with MJF. This potential story and that one would have complemented each other incredibly well if told correctly, and a match between them would have been just as excellent. The biggest Bret Hart guy versus the biggest Shawn Michaels guy. I mean, the match practically writes itself. Number 5, CM Punk vs. Jay White. When Cobalt Men Punk's return to AEW was being discussed, one name that would routinely come up was former IWGP Heavyweight Champion Jay White. White has made the most of what he has been given in his brief AEW career so far, but has managed to become a main player of Collision in quick fashion. He was one of the men involved in many of Punk's first matches post-return, but never did they cross paths in a singles match. A shame too, because if Punk was so determined to remain a babyface during this run, you would not find many better men to play heel opposite a top babyface than Jay White. He is one of the smartest workers on the planet, his promo work is great, and a back-and-forth battle of words with these two would have been quite the sight. This one seemed destined to happen, and then just didn't, and as a big fan of Jay's from his time in New Japan, I feel especially gutted. Number 4, CM Punk vs. Bryan Danielson. One of the only matches on this list that already has happened, but we absolutely should have gotten to see again. Bryan Danielson and Chronicle Magician Punk have a long history dating back through WWE to Ring of Honor, with both promotions being home to classic matches between the two. Some may not know that before Punk left ROH to go to WWE, the plan was for he and Danielson to be a black trunk, black boot tag team akin to Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens. It's a crime we didn't get that either, but considering the hype surrounding Punk and Danielson's AEW arrivals at All Out 2021, how we didn't get a chance to see this one escapes me. I'm sure Tony expected Punk to be around much longer than he was, and without interruption, so keeping these main event matches safe for a rainy day does make sense, but it also does mean that now we'll probably never get to see them. This is a salty list, and speaking of, number 3, CM Punk vs. MJF 3. Twice we were robbed of this match. Chaco Mountain Punk and MJF were meant to have their climactic third match following All Out last year, but Punk got hurt, and also some other shit happened that made him unavailable. Then this summer, Punk carried around the Real World Championship to inevitably merge it with MJF at an undisclosed point in the future. And again, some other shit stood in the way. MJF and Punk's rivalry is maybe my favorite in AEW's history, and their story being left unfinished just don't sit right with me, especially considering how directly tied to CM Punk MJF's return at All Out 2022 was. The line of "the greatest thing the devil ever did was convince people he didn't exist" comes straight out of the original summer of Punk in Ring of Honor, and if their rivalry is anything to go off of, and it is, one would have to think that the story leading to a third match would have carried just as much weight and hopefully just as much quality as it had before. Number 2, CMFTR vs. The Elite. We were all hoping, weren't we? Regardless of your position on all this nonsense, deep down you wanted to see this too. Maybe the biggest money-making angle possible in AEW's past, present, or future turned out to be anything but possible. If the recent reports are to be believed, the Young Bucks said that they would meet with Celeste Mountain Punk if he could go 6 months without an incident.
How long was that?
Not long enough! Yeah, it doesn't seem like this match was ever going to happen with those qualifications. This was all people could think to fantasy book from Brawl Out onwards because real life heat equals pay-per-view buys after all, but it really would have been such an incredible match. To have not gotten to see Punk interact with the Elite on camera in all Elite wrestling during his 2 years with the promotion feels almost impossible. But if there's one more match that didn't even need Brawl Out to happen to be one of the biggest drawing matches possible in AEW, it would be number 1, CM Punk vs. Kenny Omega. I have to laugh so that I don't cry. Every time someone writes a list of dream matches for a new AEW signee, Kenny Omega's name would be at the top of the list. The man is a generational wrestler, a truly special talent, and as we were all reminded at All Out this year, he is still the best bout machine. A match between Kenny and Cat Mario Punk would have brought hype equal to Kenny's match with Bryan Danielson from 2 years ago, and while it certainly would have been different, it could have been just as iconic. It feels a bit unfair to blame AEW for this not becoming a reality, as Kenny's 2021 injury layoff took him off TV for most of Punk's run, but after a half-decade of dreaming of a Punk Omega battle for the ages, it just feels like we got a little too close to it happening for it to have eluded us. So keep these matches close in your dreams, where they will live forever. Until CM Punk inevitably returns to AEW, because who can predict this place anymore? Bye! And that's our list. Did we miss any? Make sure you comment down below any CM Punk dream matches you would have liked to have seen in AEW, and make sure you check out this clip from the latest Survival series. Today, you will be trying to name every single AEW champion in reverse chronological order.
World champion?
Champion.
What? Oh God, I had no idea you could be this sadistic.